Well, in discussion of political theory, we take up today the concept of citizenship. Now, citizenship appears very simple because of the fact that we are all citizens. But if we go deeper into the meaning of citizenship and its implications for political theory, then a large number of issues come in which will require our attention. The citizenship, this very concept, has evolved historically. Its form and substance in each historical period has been reflecting dominant configuration of political as well as socio-economic factors and context in each historical period. Now, generally, citizenship is defined as a legal, political, or legal formal status, and it carries with it the notion of specific duties and responsibilities. But philosophically speaking, this concept has larger implications. It is a broader concept, broader and larger than the legal formal one. In fact, if I can refer to the most important contribution to this debate over the meaning of citizenship and the responsibilities of citizenship, I can mention the name of Professor T.H. Marshall of London University, who towards the late 20th century defined citizenship in a very big sense. He says that it means a full and equal membership in a political community. We will have occasion to come back to Marshall in detail, but what he means to say is this: it is never confined to just law or rules or constitutional system as such. So in this way, we can see that this is a concept which is basically a concept which has evolved over a long period. We can start from the ancient time, and we find that there are four broad periods in which it got its special definition by philosophers and jurists, and we'll find how the concept has changed over time because of the changing social political situations. If we look at the ancient time, that is the Greco-Roman period, as we say, beginning from 4th century BC and for the next 1000 years, so to say, we find that here there is a special meaning attached to the word citizen. That is, citizen is a person who takes part in the activities of the civis or polis. These are the two Greek words I use, meaning that small states where citizens have got the scope to come together, discuss problems, and take decisions for the state, for the society, or for any concerned subject. This is one kind of thing that was very much underlined by Aristotle. In his book Politics, Aristotle remarked that one who does not live in a polis, that is the city-state of ancient Greece, is either a beast or a god. That is, citizen acquires the quality of a meaningful life only by living in a polis, that is a city-state. Now, what does he want to mean actually? He meant actually that citizen must take part in decision-making process and that process will involve all the adult male persons of the society concerned. So by this definition, it implies that in those days, both in Greek civilization and in Roman civilization, there were some exclusions. For example, the women and the working class artisans, they were excluded because philosophers in those days, they thought that they have no role, practically no contribution to make towards running or management of the state or the politics. So this is the starting point of the concept of emergence of citizenship, but it has specifically got more importance during the Roman period, in a sense that the Romans, they had a very compared to the Greeks, the Romans had to administer a vast area and had to manage a large number of varieties of what we in modern language call nationalities, that is the peoples, different varieties of people. As the empire or the republic spread, then the philosophers of citizenship in Roman civilization, they had to face this problem that who are the citizens. Now the people living in the distant areas under the Roman Republic, but ethnically different from the Romans living in Rome or in central place of the Republic or Empire. Now certainly they are not similar, and they are not similar ethnically, they are not similar to the needs of the society to which they are expected to attend. And therefore, the dilemma came before them that what is the difference between a Roman citizen of Rome and non-Roman, ethnically different citizens of Rome, I mean Roman Empire or Republic. Now then they distinguished this like this, that ethnically non-Roman people, they will not be enjoying the same facilities or rights that is typically genuine Roman citizens is entitled to. So this is another addition that was made by the Roman philosophers and jurists in the evolution of the citizenship. Then the second period in which it again received special attention, that was what may be called the late medieval and early modern period. Starting from say 17th century onwards for the next 2 centuries, so to say, we find that philosopher and jurist Baudin in France, he took the trouble of trying to see what exactly is the responsibility of a citizen. Now to him and to some subsequent French philosophers like Montesquieu, we find that the emphasis was more or less to determine the family life of the people and what are the obligations that the people owe to the family, to the church and to the state. And therefore they try to define the different aspects of the responsibilities carried away by the concept of citizenship. So this is one kind of expansion again that took place. Then when we come to the 19th century, then we find that by this time 2 major events have taken place. That is the emergence, the big change, an emergence of a new economic system called capitalism. This has just emerged and going very vigorously. And secondly, it was also the emergence of a political philosophy, completely new one, that is philosophy of liberalism. So liberalism and capitalism, it is said, they are the twin brothers. So they arrived more or less the same thing. They are intimately connected with one another, and liberals' focus is on removing the restrictions on the rights of the citizens, from which the word liberal comes. And capitalism also has the same interest in order to free the citizens as much as possible from the bondage that they were there during the feudal system. This, during the 19th century especially, the demand was therefore, both politically and economically, that the energy of the individual, rights and obligations of the individual, they must all be very clear, but everything must be done to enhance the capacity, movement, progress forward of the citizens. There must not be any hurdle placed on it. And secondly, citizens or the individual will have at least three basic rights which were defined and underlined by Locke, that is right to life, right to liberty, and most importantly, right to individual property, personal property. And therefore, once these things are taken as the vital demands of the citizenship, then naturally, who will guarantee the protection of those facilities or rights? So they expected that it is the state which will do it. And therefore, it nicely fitted in with the basic philosophy of liberalism and the basic needs of capitalism. And last of all, when we come to the 20th century, in Europe or in the Western world in a sense, especially Europe, we find that emergence of welfare state ideology and its practice, especially after the Second World War, they created a situation in which the old liberal values are to be reviewed. Whether freedom to move, freedom to think, freedom to express, freedom to acquire property, etc. These are the only thing that the citizens need, or there are other things that they want. Because by this time, in the Western industrialized liberal democracies of Europe, another important thing has happened, that is the emergence of the working class. And as a product of capitalism as such, there is a class not only as those who are engaged in industries, but also which come very simultaneously with it, the emergence of a class of people who have no positions. To quote Karl Marx's celebrated word, that they have nothing to lose but their fetters. That means here is a class of people who are, in modern language, we may call the marginalized, the deprived, the underprivileged sections. Now I come to the importance of T.H. Marshall's contribution to the ongoing discourse on citizenship. Marshall, as a professor of social administration, contributed a vital point in this debate. Now means I say in the 1960s onwards. He pointed out that citizenship must be a concept which will enable the excluded elements of the community, the marginalized sections of the community, to have a full minimum standard of living. And therefore, citizenship automatically, from this philosophical angle, implies that citizens must have some rights which are really necessary, minimum that is necessary for a decent living. And therefore now you can compare from 4th century BC to late 20th century, what a change in the concept of citizenship, which started as a basic participation in small gathering of male peoples in a small city, now which changed to all the people in a very big, complicated, industrialized, liberal society, including, and that is the contribution of Marshall, including the deprived, marginalized and the underprivileged sections of the society. Because his argument was, unless we look at them and society, the welfare state takes responsibility of looking after their interest, there is a danger of political life being disturbed, and that means there will be a disturbance in the concept of citizenship also. So a full, enjoyable, valuable citizen's life, civic life, it is necessary to bring them within the notion of citizens or citizenship.
Sir,
now,
can I make a question, sir? Sir, was it with Marshall that the 20th century's concept of citizenship was shaped? Was it Marshall who shaped the concept of citizenship during the 20th century?
No, I shouldn't say shaped. I say he expanded. He expanded to make it really meaningful to the change that has taken over in the society, in the political philosophy, when social welfare state came to stay. So again, you see that Greek situation, I mean social context, Roman situation, medieval situation, then early modern situations of capitalism, liberalism, emergence period, and now you see that it is completely a new political and social context in which now the term or the concept of citizenship is to be discussed. So now over this whole range of historical revolution, if we now look at them generally, then we find that is two broad patterns or major traditions of defining citizenship has emerged. One which is called civic republicanism. That is, citizenship implies political participation. It implies a concept of common good of the society. It implies some sort of a public spirit and civic virtue. Once these things are focused, then that school, that tradition may be called or has been called the civic republican tradition. Another which emerged with liberalism and capitalism, that has been termed as liberal citizenship. So these are the two broad varieties. Liberal citizenship emphasizes individuals' rights, the rights of the private citizen and private interest. He has his own personal private interest which he expects and demands that society and the government must protect. If not, naturally there will be political movements and democratic pressures. So this is the kind of thing. Now let us look a bit analytically into these two. When we say civic republicanism, that is active participation of the citizen in the affairs of state and society. This is basic meaning of civic republicanism. That is some sort of a political system in which it is the citizens who matter. We find, when can we find this thing in history? In Greece. When they are talking about police and the city-states and the right of citizenship. In fact, citizenship as a concept constitutes a special chapter in Aristotle's politics. And he has again distinguished between ideal citizen and the ideal or good man. Good man and good citizenship is a very common topic in Aristotle, studying Aristotle politics. So now we come that this is the idea, the term was not used. Civic republicanism was not used, but its germs was there. The very beginning of the concept was there in Greece and Roman civilizations. And then it was to Buddha who underlined the importance of the non-ethnic people in the society, because citizens' basic family rights are to be protected. Now that is because of the fact, again we remember from history, that when Buddha was writing, now this was a troubled political time in France between Protestants and Huguenots and Catholics, and there was even riots, etc., etc. So the first major demand that political philosophers said that there must be security, just as Hobbes through his very elaborate philosophy came final to the point, the personal security is the basic demand. Number one priority is personal security. Now you know that in modern times also in many countries, I must not mention those countries now, the personal security is really in danger. So that was when I make this point is that the philosophers in their keen observation point out where the challenge lies. And therefore we find a stage in civic republicanism when this personal security question came very much importance. Then we find a stage comes when, in addition to personal security, naturally, the demands of the conscience, that is the right of free speech. John Milton, John Locke, they were all for the person in a democracy must be, or even in a monarchy, the citizen must have the right of free speech. That was the classic defense of Milton or Locke and many other persons, right up to the present time when the journalists claim that we must have full freedom to report and think in our own ways. And every individual must also have the right to think freely, express them freely. And many current political problems arise when the state steps in to disturb them, to cut them, to suppress them. This is so vital. So that is the grand tradition of what may be called civic republicanism. And we also find that this, apart from this, the persons that I have meant, philosophers, one can see that emergence of it starting from Machiavelli. You just remember the context of Machiavelli, again a disturbed political situation. So he demands that individual, not in the prince as such, but in discourse he says that freedom of the individual and the freedom of the speech, liberty, etc., conscience, all these things were emphasized. It was also emphasized by Montesquieu, again a great philosopher, the author of The Spirit of the Laws. And when in course of time, in course of the discussions in this book, he said that institutions are important, and therefore he took up this point readily. And also we find in Rousseau, Rousseau also in a social contract, his ideal situation was that under the oak tree on a Sunday morning, people will gather and try to hammer out a general will, which will be the law of the land. So again, the main focus was on civic as well as republican character of this concept. And the liberal citizenship, when we come, I think the best person who must be referred to is John Stuart Mill, who gave a revised statement of the classical liberalism, and he said that duties must be accompanied by rights, or rights must be accompanied by duties, otherwise it has no meaning. So that is one kind of liberal citizenship connotation that we come. And then a system of civic rights, that is, there are certain things which are essential for making a civilized life possible. There may be affluence, monetary affluence, but if no right to express one's opinion about the affairs of the state and society, naturally that is not democracy. Then we come to Marshall, who, let me quote him, full and equal membership in a political community, unquote. This shows that there is equality among citizens, number one. Number two, integrating excluded and marginalized people into the full enjoyment of citizenship. So, citizenship we now find, as it stands, the concept, it has both legal, constitutional connotation, but as well as it has a political, philosophical connotation. Now, this concept was very much criticized later on, and we will take it up in the next class.
So citizenship includes basically both rights and duties. I mean, we cannot exclude rights from duties or the other way around. And there cannot be any concept of active or passive citizenship as we have, as has been argued by some scholars. I mean, citizenship is a comprehensive idea.
Some scholars have used the word active citizens.
But is it
But
possible?
passive citizenship, that word was not used much. Active citizenship, naturally, he must take part, politically he must vote, he must have the right to stand for elections, he must participate in judging over affairs. So in this way, in very modern times, Habermas, in our time, now he is emphasizing that the civil society's right, that is the right of every individual, thinking individual, that if he wants to say something, to criticize the state or to contribute his own judgment over the affairs of the going on, then that must be accepted. I think that completes the round that we are doing, that is definition, implications, and the consequences of the evolving concept of citizenship over more than 2000 years.